Hello, I'm on Seven Spades, and I'm here with.
Nerbert, eater of hospitals.
Anyway, today this will be the first part of a two or three parts series, depending on if we have the time or just the will. This first part, which is this video, will be about the overlying meta and what we suspect the upcoming meta will be after the new patch. The purpose of this series is to talk about before the patch actually drops the strong heroes that are picked a lot in both competitive and pubs, the overarching meta, how it might change, and if we get to it, maybe items or nerfs and buffs that heroes or items might receive. So to start this off, we're going to be talking about the current meta. I'm going to talk about the competitive meta
And I'm probably going to talk about more of the pub meta, or lack thereof.
because he actually plays pubs and I do not. So
Right.
currently, the main competitive meta, it's actually super diverse. It's one of the best that Dota's ever had. The overlying theme though is there's a lot of high physical damage that emphasizes pushing in team fights along with map control. So you'll see heroes such as Dro or Shadow Demon and Luna, where they can do a lot of work early on. They aren't just like farm all day. They can push towers. They can help their team. And once you can do that, push towers, take objectives, it allows for a lot of map control, i.e. through wards, and like you'll also see some heroes like Beastmaster who provide vision, and that's more map control overall. And once you have map control over, say, like the jungle and stuff, it really limits your enemies. And that's overall kind of how the meta has been for a while now, for the past two patches. What about the pub meta? How is the pub? The
So pub
scrubs?
metas, as always, it's just everyone playing their own little game. There's no teamwork involved. Some of the more popular heroes right now, I'd say, are obviously PA. You see a lot of Alchemist. Um, it's these heroes that they see in competitive use. They don't really understand why. Um, like Axe. There's a lot of Axe. Um, it seems pretty death bally. Um, Usually, one team at some points is going to collect together and run down a lane. Um, I'm speaking from like a 3K to 4K perspective, though. I mean, I'm sure it's different in different brackets.
Yeah, I should add
Um,
that both of us are low MMR and we suck at Dota.
we suck. Actually, no, fucking speak for yourself, you piece of shit.
Fine, I
I'm
suck at
perfect.
Dota. Nerbert's
I'm
just an
perfect in
asshole.
every way. um, but yeah, I'm not really sure that Valve's going to change much based on pubs, because pubs seem pretty balanced right now. I mean, besides heroes like PA and Omni Knight who
The
pretty much
PA
dominate
dagger
pubs.
spam, the invoker doing everything.
Yeah, Omni Knight existing and having a 62% win rate in most tiers. Um, I think maybe those particular heroes could be changed, but who knows?
And so, with that said, I would like to talk about the meta shift. How the meta will change with the upcoming patch. How, like, because for the last two patches, we've relatively had a very similar meta. The only thing that really shifted were the heroes. And I'm curious to see if Mr. Ice Frog will actually change that. I suspect that he won't, mainly for the reason that it doesn't seem that people are bored yet of how the meta is played out in competitive scenes. People still seem really entertained. The one thing that I suspect will change will be the heroes overall. And really, when I'm talking about what won't change in the meta, I mostly mean gold swing and comeback mechanics and like tower gold and stuff like that. I suspect they'll keep that the same. The only thing that I think might change would be buyback, in that I'm hoping or at least suspect that because with buyback, it actually halves your gold for the amount of time that you had left until you're supposed to be alive, and for both creeps and heroes. And I suspect they might remove that from heroes. So the reason why I suspect that is that that would actually encourage more team fights or buyback in team fight. So say you're a dead carry, and it's early in the game, and you can buy back. You have buyback, and the enemy team's coming down mid as like 4 or 5. You can either not buy back, wait until respawn, go somewhere and farm. But if you suspect that if you were to buy back, and that you could win the team fight and get some kills, Well, currently you only get half the gold you normally would. Whereas I believe if you remove that mechanic from the heroes at least, then that would be much more incentive for a carry or at least a core like position 3, like a faceless void who has chrono, to buy back, participate in a team fight because he'll get more gold from it if you change that.
I think it makes it kind of like a gamble. Like you don't know exactly if you're going to get much out of buying back, but there's a possibility that you can.
Yeah, and I feel it'd
I
be
kind of
more of
like
an
that.
incentive to buy back,
Yeah, yeah.
which I feel overall that would be better for the competitive scene. It would, I
Because
believe, it would increase activity in team fights.
well, in the early game, buyback is just it doesn't exist. You
Y-
notice that in like pro games. I don't think you rarely ever see anyone buy back in the early game.
Yeah, the only time you might see a buyback is with a support that's actually managed to save us from the gold, and it's always just to save a carry.
Yeah, yeah.
And the next thing I wanted to talk about, where at least in competitive, or actually no, let's talk about how the pub meta might shift. What heroes do you think will be nerfed to where they aren't as relevant? Because let's be real, the pub meta is really just about heroes. It's not about like any kind of strategies or anything like that. So what
Right.
heroes do you think will be nerfed, and what heroes do you think will see the light of day?
So right now I'm seeing a lot of Timbersaw. Timbersaw's very popular. I think both him in pubs and competitive, him being that good, I think he's going to be nerfed. Most likely to his passive. I'm pretty like right now it's a little bit too good. You can just walk into a creep wave and have like 20 HP regen. It's a little bit silly. I think Invoker's going to be nerfed. Hopefully, I would really want that to happen. He can accomplish a lot more that he probably should in the early game, since the change to him being able to get a spell at level 1, so he can get more spells earlier on. Um, let's see. I think obviously Drow's really popular in both pubs and competitive. I think she's going to get nerfed probably to her ultimate and passive. Her other abilities are fine. Um, Axe is probably going to get nerfed somehow, whether it be like a base armor thing or maybe the HP regen. Um, Now to shift over to heroes that I think might get buffs to get them more into the meta of pubs and perhaps competitive. I think Sniper might receive something. Um, you you see him a little bit in pubs. He's never really accomplishing anything. He's too squishy. There's a lot of heroes that kind of shit all over him, like Slark and Ricky's and stuff. So I'm not sure exactly what they'll do. I think there might be something there. Um, there might be a little mini buff to Storm. You see him a little bit in pubs. Like I think he does fine, but he's not like he used to be. Um,
Interesting. I want to go back to Storm and Sniper. The interesting with Sniper though is he was recently picked up a lot by OG, and they faced a criticism from both Reddit and also Twitch chat, of course, in that he was seen as a shitty hero. Let's be honest, and a lot of people still see it as that. But the interesting thing is that other teams started picking him up, such as I believe Team Faceless, OG obviously has, I believe NP might have. Just there have been multiple teams that have decided to try him out and pick him up. And after that happened, Sniper's pick rate increased by almost 18%. He's
mhm.
now one of the most picked pub heroes. His win rate is still below 50%. So I
Yeah,
believe his win rate overall has remained about the same, but his pick rate has greatly increased. And I find that interesting, and it really shows how much competitive can affect pubs.
yeah, and it's a thing like they'll follow what the competitive picks are, but as shown by the win rate, they don't really know exactly how to execute it or when to execute it. Like they'll just pick Sniper into a team that has like Ricky's, Slarks, people with a lot of bursts. They tend to just pick it. They don't really see why you pick it. Um, let's see. Going into other heroes that I think might be buffed for pub use. Definitely Broodmother. I'm not exactly sure what Broodmother's pick rate is. It's gone down a lot. I believe it's yeah. She's 105th in popularity, and I believe 39% win rate. So she's not doing good right now. You see a little bit in higher MMRs. She's kind of successful. um, is kind of depending on the people playing her. But I do think she's going to receive some kind of buff. We can probably get in more into detail with that in a future video where we go into the hero abilities and new items and whatnot. But yeah, I think heroes like that I think are going to receive some buffs to boost their pick pickup potential and stuff.
Yeah, I really like that because someone like Brood, she hasn't really been relevant too often, and especially for over a long period of time. Like she was one of those really niche kind of picks, but even anymore, it's just with how everything works, like especially the Spiderling, she's just not worth it. You very, very rarely see competitive teams even pick it up. It used to be where she was the always scary fifth pick. That it
Hmm.
can be if someone just picks her fifth pick, a competitive team picks her fifth pick, it's almost an instant loss just because she can win the lane so dominantly. But now, especially with the heroes that are relevant, such as Axe or Timbersaw, she just doesn't see the light of day. She just can't
It's
do.
almost a negative to pick her up because
Yeah,
she's feeding more gold than she's really contributing to her own team.
and so I'm curious how I do suspect they will change Broodmother or some sort of gold mechanic to where she will become more relevant again.
Hmm.
And I believe that for both pubs and also competitive, more so for competitive. The reason I suspect it won't be as relevant in pubs is because it does require some micro, even if it's really minimal. As we all know, by just looking over at the win rates in Dotabuff through micro intensive heroes, they can have a very high impact and very high win rate in competitive, but they always have sub 40 or sub 50 to almost 40% win rate just because of the skill required.
Yep. I mean, I think it should probably stay that way. I think heroes that require micro should. They don't think they should make them
Yeah, by no
easier.
means do I think that they should make high skill heroes less skillful or easier. The
Hmm.
only way I could see you could do that and not change the hero would be just to change the base mechanics of Dota, like how key bindings and stuff work.
And
Like, it,
control groups.
yeah, control groups. If they were to change that, then I could see heroes such as that getting increasing in win rate, just because it might make micro easier. But I don't suspect they'll do that, at least not anytime soon. Maybe sometime in the future, just to make control groups and everything more accessible to players. Because in truth, right now it's kind of a mess. I'm not very impressed with it. But I guess I don't think it's that huge, especially
Mm.
since we have the tab feature. It's that's what a lot of people use anyway.
Right.
So I want to go back to competitive and high picks, and then I'm going to go into what heroes I feel will come back into the meta. So as I said near the start, the current high picks in competitive are Dro, Shadow Demon, Warlock, Elder Titan in the past. I still say he's a good hero. It's just I'm actually kind of surprised on how little he's been picked up recently. And Kunkka, I still picked up occasionally, not as much as I used to. Ogre is picked up almost every game currently. This is at during the time of the Boston Major, by the way. And Alchemist and Morph, they were for a bit. They've kind of gone out of favor, but they're still big in pubs. And with that said, I want to go back into the heroes that I suspect might be buffed or indirectly and directly to kind of get them back into the meta. I believe heroes such as Visage, as we talked about, Brood, and Lycan, and I believe Troll Warlord and magic damage based heroes. And by that I mean like the Zeus, the Quaps, Tiny.
Lena,
I believe overall, like raindrops will probably be nerfed, and there will be a
definitely.
variety of things where it'll just kind of buff the heavy magic damage dealers. I also suspect that Wraith King might make a comeback because he has been irrelevant for a very long time. People have tried a
Hmm.
variety of things, such there's been the Vanguard Radiance build with him, and they've also tried to buffing in his past his firing potential with his crit. It didn't really seem to change much, but I'm curious what they might do with him because currently he hasn't been a very favorable pick. And I like to see him in competitive. He's an interesting hero, and I think he can do well. He needs something.
Right, right. I think another hero that could be like that is Gyro. His favor's gone down quite a bit since his
Yeah,
glory days.
the one reason I don't think it will be Gyro though is because of he was relevant. Really, it's 2 patches ago, but I'd see it more as one patch just because of how similar the last patch was to this one. And that was during the TI5 and slightly post TI5 patches, in that Gyro was very relevant. He was one of the most contested carries, and the main thing that they nerfed was his early game damage. But it was because of that his pick rate and his win rate severely dropped. And the reason I suspect he won't get any major buffs, maybe some indirect buffs, if any. But the reason for that is that he was relevant not too long ago.
Mm-hmm.
And besides that, I don't really have much else. I guess the next part is to do the next video. Unless
Yeah,
unless
and
you have more to talk about that you would like to, about pubs, such as items or something.
not particularly, but I would like to go on the topic you were just talking about, hero changes from past metas. Um, I want to know what you feel about Clockwork. Clockwork was rarely picked up, but here recently his pick rate in competitive's actually gone up quite a bit, and he's pretty successful. Since that's the case, do you think he's going to receive much in the way of buffs?
I don't think Clockwork will be changed all that much. He provides a lot for a team. He provides essentially a form of lockdown through his Q and his cogs, in that he can early game and mid game. The issue comes when like force staffs come online, but in the early and mid game, his Q, which is a stun over an interval every like less than a second, and then his cogs, which can lock an enemy in or block a escape path. So they're very good early and mid game. And then you have his E. I don't remember the name, but it provides a lot of map
Rocket Flare.
vision. Rocket Flare provides a lot of map vision, especially for Roshan or objectives. And as I talked about before, it's a lot about map control in this meta. And I'm surprised he wasn't picked earlier for it, because he can provide a lot of map control due to his Rocket Flare. And then the cherry on top is his ultimate. Uh, it is a BK beer piercing stun, which is, as we see, a lot of heroes that have that are often picked up, such as the Beastmaster or the
Madness.
Train Protector is sometimes picked up because of it too. And that if they pop BKB, you can essentially negate that with his ultimate. And so that's part of the reason Cluck has also seen some pickup too, is because of his BKB piercing stun.
Right,
And
right.
with all that said, I don't suspect he'll be changed all that much in the patch. I suspect overall it'll probably remain about the same. He might actually, as long as there aren't very many changes, I suspect he might be picked more often, because teams are currently seeing that he actually can make a large impact, both as an offlaner and a position 4.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's
That's
pretty much all I've got.
same. All right. That was part 1. We'll be making a part 2, which will be a more in-depth overview of the heroes that were in meta, how we believe they'll change through the patch, i.e., direct buffs or direct nerfs, indirect nerfs, and heroes that were not underpicked essentially. What
Mm-hmm.
kind of buffs, whether direct and indirect, they might receive. That's what's going to be that's what the next video is going to be about. And then if we have the time or dexterity, we might make a third video that'll focus on the item change, like possible item changes, new items, possible map changes, and of course Monkey King.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, we did want to talk about one more thing, which we
Oh,
can next. But whether we think Underlord or Monkey King, or not, I mean Underlord or Arc Warden are ready
Arc Warden.
for Captain's mode.
We'll save that.
We'll save that. Okay, that's what we'll be talking about next episode. Thank you for watching.
Bye bye.